On June 19, 1953, at Sing Sing Correctional Facility in Ossining, New York, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, Jewish Americans convicted of espionage for passing atomic and military intelligence to the Soviet Union, met their fate in the electric chair just before the onset of the Jewish Sabbath. This made Ethel the first woman executed by the US government since Mary Surratt's hanging in 1865 for her assumed involvement in Abraham Lincoln's assassination. Thus, the Rosenbergs became the first American civilians to be executed for such offences during peacetime. As detailed in a 2001 book by his former Soviet handler,
Alexander Fiklisov,
Julius Rosenberg was initially approached to spy for the Interior Ministry of the Soviet Union, or NKVD, on Labor Day 1942 by his former spy master,
Semyon Semyonov.
Over the following years, Rosenberg supplied thousands of classified reports, and given the severity of the consequences, one must assume the nature of the information he provided must have been highly confidential. So, what did the Rosenbergs give to the Soviets? The information we have regarding what was passed to the Soviets comes primarily from Ethel's brother and Julius's brother-in-law, David Greenglass. Greenglass, an American machinist, also served as an atomic spy for the Soviet Union since he, for a time, worked for the Manhattan Project. Initially stationed at the Clinton Engineer Works uranium enrichment facility in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, he later worked at Los Alamos Laboratory in New Mexico from August 1944 to February 1946. Greenglass was the individual who supplied the Rosenbergs with information concerning nuclear weapons. The Rosenbergs then in turn transferred this data to Harry Gold, a Swiss-born courier operating within the espionage ring. Gold in turn delivered the information to
Anatoly Yakovlev,
the Soviet Union's vice counsel in New York City. Greenglass eventually testified, leading to the conviction and subsequent execution of Ethel and Julius, while Greenglass himself served a 9.5-year prison sentence. In addition to disclosing highly classified details about American radar, sonar and jet propulsion engines, David Greenglass informed the Atomic Energy Commission that Julius had given the Soviets information regarding the implosion design for the atomic bomb, information on explosive lens experimental setups, and information on other experimental designs be considered. Particularly significant was levitation, a technique entailing the suspension of the plutonium core with an air gap between it and the tamper. This method allowed for greater velocity to accumulate before compression. A considerable portion of this information was rudimentary and derived from Greenglass's restricted expertise, given his background as a machinist. It's apparent from his diagram that it lacks precision akin to a blueprint, with numerous inaccuracies in the facts presented and none of the dimensions correct. The Atomic Energy Commission consented to declassify the implosion concept for the trial and permitted Greenglass to testify about it. However, they were apprehensive that he might divulge information about the initiator or levitation under cross-examination, potentially exposing classified details. Fortunately, the Rosenberg defense attorney refrained from delving into these secrets and instead had them sealed by the court, thus avoiding any probing into the nuclear specifics during the trial. Hence, Greenglass's main contribution to the Soviets lay in affirming the fundamental significance of other espionage data, including that provided by fellow atomic spies such as the German theoretical physicist
Klaus Fox
and American physicist Theodore Hall.
Klaus Fox,
Being a theoretical physicist, provided the Soviets with far more detailed insights into these matters. In addition to the intelligence obtained from the Rosenberg network, details from other sources like Fuchs, Hall and George Koval primarily centered on the design of nuclear weapons tested at Trinity in July 1945 and subsequently deployed in the bombing of Nagasaki in August. The Soviets would also come to learn about the designs of the first experimental reactors and the key decisions made at the highest echelons of the Manhattan Project. Their knowledge also touched upon the enrichment methods for uranium, with insights stemming from Fuchs's involvement in formulating the theory of gaseous diffusion. Additionally, they possessed awareness of long-term strategic plans, including those related to the development of the hydrogen bomb, which remains an enigma in terms of its correct construction at that time. Hence, their espionage efforts yielded highly valuable information in certain areas, while their understanding of intricate and important processes like uranium enrichment and plutonium production remained superficial. However, did this information truly benefit the Soviets? Well, it is not clear that it did. Lavrenti Beria, the head of the Soviet bomb project and chief of the NKVD, exhibited astute caution by not unquestionably trusting espionage intelligence. Given the inherent risk of double agents and misinformation in the intelligence landscape, this approach was sensible. In essence, the Soviets did not effectively leverage the acquired information. Even if the spy information was accurate from the spy's perspective, it did not necessarily translate to overall correctness when applied. Fundamentally, the availability of information was not the primary hindrance to the Soviet atomic bomb project. Rather, the scarcity of raw uranium stood as the ultimate limiting factor. The procurement of raw uranium ore emerged as a critical challenge in the development of atomic weapons. This is because a substantial quantity of uranium ore, amounting to thousands of tons, is necessary for such a project. At the outset of World War II, the USSR faced a significant hurdle as it possessed virtually no known uranium reserves, having conducted minimal prospecting for the resource. During and after World War II, the Soviet Union eventually embarked on extensive expeditions to secure uranium reserves. They even tried to exploit newfound sources within their grasp, such as mines in Czechoslovakia and East Germany. However, the immediate mines they could access yielded low quality quality ore. You see, the uranium content in the good ore supplies found in the American Southwest typically range from 2 to 4% of the mass of the mined ore. In contrast, the highest grade ores available to the US, sourced from the Congo, contained an average uranium content of around 60% per mass of ore. In comparison, the ores initially available to the Soviets contained only about 0.1 to 0.3% uranium. However, in the Soviet Union, labour was inexpensive, so they tackled the issue by employing a large workforce. Despite the challenge posed by the abundance of low-quality ores, they simply aimed for quantity and refined it, albeit through arduous processes. Ultimately, superior ore sources were discovered, particularly in the Kazakh SSR, now Kazakhstan, which today holds around 12% of the world's known uranium reserves. Over time, the USSR would come to control a significant portion of the global uranium reserves through its territories and satellite states. Nonetheless, the development of these reserves took time, which is why uranium availability served as the primary limiting factor in their early nuclear program. In the end, the trajectory of their program hinged on the availability of uranium rather than concerns related to bomb design. However, the bulk of the espionage information pertained almost exclusively to bomb design, and while certainly significant, bomb design alone does not dictate whether a state can acquire a nuclear weapon. This is because a team of engineers and physicists can theoretically devise a bomb design once they ascertain its feasibility and are provided with adequate resources. This hasn't made Jack, and if you have any nuclear secrets, please leave it in the comments down below.